I remember when I was a kid and my brother and I took karate lessons. He became excellent at the whole karate business. I only ever sort of became just kind of embarrassingly not that good intermediate. But he became quite good. But
was
anyway,
was your belt ever was your belt citrus colors only?
I maxed
tangerine,
out at yellow belt.
Yeah.
I maxed out at yellow belt and just kind of like lost interest.
So Andrew, why not something like the Bagpipers Coven or Andrew Douglas's Bagpipe Club or Learn to Play Bagpipes Online? Why Piper's Dojo? Why did it end up being called that?
Yeah, it's really kind of interesting. And over the years, myself and many others have felt motivated to change the name.
Oh, really? You've thought about changing it, huh?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a weird name for a bagpiping business. And so the bottom line is, like, here's the story of the dojo. It goes like this. I moved back to the Albany area after college, so roughly 2007, 2008. And I used to do a lot of teaching with Donald Lindsay. He and I would teach workshops all over the place, and we were kind of like pals. And I'm so grateful to Donald because he would always tell clients like, "Hey, Andrew Douglas is here, and we love teaching together. Like, why don't you just hire both of us, and we'll both come up and do workshops." And we would do a whole bunch together, and that was really cool. But Donald's an old friend, but we would do a lot of driving around the countryside together. So we would just talk about all sorts of stuff. And one of the things I would have been talking about at that time is, like, I remember when I was a kid and my brother and I took karate lessons. He became excellent at the whole karate business. I only ever sort of became just kind of embarrassingly not that good intermediate. But he became quite good. But anyway,
was your belt was your belt citrus colors only?
I maxed
tangerine,
out at yellow belt.
Yeah.
I maxed out at yellow belt and just kind of like lost interest. But I remember I would just talk to Donald like, I think the karate dojos really have it right in the sense that they just get everybody together. And depending on who shows up, they divide people into like different class sizes. And then, you have some people, you have more advanced students teaching the beginners, and it's like sort of like a communal sort of thing. The furthest thing from a communist, but in this case, like that small.
It's okay. My head didn't even go there. Yeah, I see what you mean.
Like for me, I say communal and I start to twitch, but it is. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So, but you get the groups together, and then you have your senseis, and they're kind of like guiding the ship, and they're working with the most advanced players, but then the most advanced players are doing stuff that is kind of like rubbing off on the beginners, and it's like a great immersive environment. And I thought karate stuff was really cool, and I would say to Donald something along the lines of, it would be so cool to do like a piping school that way. Just get everybody together and just rock and roll. And we would have this conversation and we'd brainstorm different ideas. And eventually Donald was just like, Andrew, this sounds really cool. You need to do this thing. And you need to make this bagpipery dojo style type thing. And I was like, cool. Like if I did this, would you teach at the dojo and like, could we do this thing? Would you come out and teach and whatever? And he was like, oh yeah, absolutely. This sounds like a great idea.
At that early phase, were you already thinking internet, or were you thinking more of a local shop kind of thing?
No, the internet, and I don't know if you remember the internet in 2007. But,
I remember it.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it existed, but no, definitely not. This was like, I was picturing straight up dojo. And guess what? That's what we ended up doing. But before we get to that point, I was like, cool, all right, we'll do this dojo thing. But Donald, like, what would you call such a thing? Like, what should we name it? And I gave him a couple names. He was like, no, obviously, there's only one name for this thing. And that is the Piper's Dojo, man.
That's where it came from, huh?
Yep. So Donald like gets naming credit for the Piper's Dojo. The problem with that is that once you name a thing, there's no going back.
Yeah.
No, but not, and I would not change the name of the dojo at this point. But
rebrands are so hard and messy, though.
And I love it. And we'll talk, maybe in this conversation, like, I still kind of love it. It's kind of come full circle. But anyway, so I kind of figured it out. We had a friend who was a reverend at a church, and I asked her, hey, can I do this dojo thing 5 nights a week at your church in the, whatever. And she's like, no, you can't, but you can do it 4 nights a week.
Wow. 4 is pretty generous still. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, and we paid rent, we paid money for it.
Yeah.
But like, and maybe the first month she didn't charge me rent, and then she started charging. Well, I don't remember the details. Her name was Mary White, really excellent piper. And actually, coincidentally, married us, my wife and I. She was
really?
the reverend at our wedding, as it shakes out. But we booked a church, and we went for it. And Donald...
Was she already a piper when that happened, or did she learn afterward?
Oh, no, she was already a piper.
She already was, okay.
She was already a good piper, yeah. But, like there's sort of that I don't know what the word is, community of pipers, and people do nice things for each other.
Totally.
And she did us a solid.
A member of the tribe, as it were.
Yeah. And so we charged something along the lines of $150 for unlimited visits to the dojo. Or you could do $75 a month for up to 2 visits a week. That was the pricing scheme. And for the first year or two, we had like tons of people, and they loved it. There was a local band that like practiced, and they would come by, and basically we would just, whoever showed up, we would organize small group sessions for these people, and there'd be a little room for people to play some solo stuff, and there'd be little groups talking about getting your bag airtight and getting the maintenance right, and we would do this. And I remember it was certainly a fascinating experience. Over time,
it has to have been so unique, right? Just like to have a music education program that doesn't have a track, like you start on this date and you do these chapters and you move through in that way. Yep,
exactly. So anyway, and that went for a while. I think maybe 2 years or something like that. And it had to take different forms over the years, but eventually it just kind of like, it just became logistically not that great. Like we had a couple of bands who kind of decided they didn't really want to do it anymore. And so like we lost a big chunk of clients, and then, just overall interest tends to wax and wane over time. And
sure.
And it kind of definitely waned, because the bottom line is the average piper doesn't actually want to pipe that much.
let alone pay to pipe that much.
Yeah. But anyway, during the time of the dojo, we're kind of doing this dojo thing. One of the things that came along was people needed supplies. So I looked into adding a supplies element, and it started as like a physical supplies cache that we had at the church, so like the dojo members could buy stuff, and other people in the neighborhood would call me up if their band needed a new set of chanters or something. And that became another source of income, and so on and so forth. But then as the interest in the physical dojo started to die off gradually, I started to move things to the internet, right? So it's like, okay, I got these supplies. Like, cool. I can also put up a little website, and I've always had the computery skills. Back then, putting up a storefront was hard. Now it's easy. Like now it's actually free. I think you can Shopify stuff with a free account now. It's like super easy.
Yeah, they just
but
take
back
a little
then
off
you
the
had
top.
to back then it was like you had to jump through a bunch of hoops to take credit card payments, and like, the actual storefront software was pretty expensive, but I kind of figured it out, and we were able to do it. So for a couple of years, I was going to the post office every day, shipping off the bagpipery supplies, and then, but that was a good way to kind of supplement the income. And so, yeah, we had this Piper's Dojo thing. I think for a year or so, it was actually mostly supplies.
Interesting.
And the amount of teaching we were doing was actually not that much.
And then, was that all like one-on-one live teaching, or was it like recorded videos that people could watch at their leisure?
Oh, nothing like that. We had nothing like that yet. Yeah. We were selling products on the internet. We dabbled with a couple of webinars and things, but like, it was all just dabbling. And then we would do what was left of the Piper's Dojo. I think we would do that a couple nights a week. And then I would teach local bands. Oh,
so still in-person teaching is what was
going
on.
Gotcha. It's all still like, it's all still that kind of stuff. And then, but anyway, it was all still called the Piper's Dojo, because that's how people knew us locally. And it's definitely a unique name that's different that draws attention, which is still good. It's still good for our brand to be kind of, different than so-and-so's bagpipe teaching organization.
Right.
So that, in that element, it's still good. But anyway, and then I'll just finish. I'll just continue on with the history. The real pivotal moment. I was on my honeymoon, and I was in the pool, and I just started daydreaming, and it was like, piping schools are great, and Skype lessons are great. Like, what if you could converge the two ideas and do a real piping school on the internet? And I thought about all the potential upsides. Obviously, there's challenges and a few downsides, but and I was like, honey, well, or it was more like, babe, I'm going to do an online piping school, and like blah blah blah. And like back then, it was not a clean thing. We found like two dudes. We found like two dudes who had online seminar software, and like we worked with these two dudes to launch Dojo. There was no Zoom.
Very, very different landscape. Yeah.
Yeah. And then eventually Adobe Connect came along. That was just like an offshoot of US military software that they decided to license to the public. So we used Adobe Connect for a while. And then finally Zoom came along. Like, Zoom is so great. We all take Zoom for granted. It's so amazing. And we were around before that was even remotely a thing. But we built this online piping school, and we kept the name, Piper's Dojo. Yeah. And then we called it, the online piping school, I decided to very cleverly call Dojo University. It's going to be kind of like a university for pipers online. It's going to be so super amazing. And it's now like, what are we called? Are we Piper's Dojo or are we Dojo University? Still don't know. Still don't know the answer. Couldn't tell you. People are like, you should rebrand it, one or the other. And it was like, no, you should rebrand whatever you do. And we're going to keep doing this. Because rebranding is so hard and totally not worth it. Yeah. Right?
Such a mess.
I'm not going to give up a year's profits just to rebrand a bagpipe company that already has a ridiculous name. It's just probably not going to happen. But yeah. And so we started off with like semester format. Mm-hmm. So you would pay us $150, and that would give you like 8 weeks with Mark Saul, and he's going to teach you how to compose awesome bagpipe tunes.
Yeah.
We did that for several semesters. And then this seems obvious now, right? Netflix subscription, Zoom subscription, Microsoft Word subscription, Butcher Box subscription. What other subscriptions do we have?
My trash bags arrive on a monthly basis. In a subscription.
Amazon subscriptions.
Yeah.
This seems obvious to us now, but it was totally not obvious back in 2011 or whatever year it was. It was totally not obvious, but I stumbled across a little piece of software that would turn your website into a membership site. Yeah. Membership sites are obvious now. It was not obvious back then. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, could we pivot this thing slightly and like, why don't people just pay me a much smaller amount every single month, and we'll just continuously run cool programming all the time. And it'll just be this ongoing thing, and it'll, membership. Oh yeah. And by the way, as a business model, this is why everybody does it. As a business model, the recurring revenue is king.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It was not, I just want to stress, it was not obvious back then.
Right.
It just wasn't. But then it was like, oh crap. And Carl, he was in the cubicle on the other side of me. Back then we actually, we all worked together in the same place. And it was like, Carl, stop everything you're doing. This is what needs to happen starting right now. And that's where the current form of Dojo U kind of began. So, and we have reliable, regularly recurring income stream, and that allowed us to kind of like be creative and do stuff. And we still sold supplies on the other side. Now we had two sides of the business. We had the supplies and we had the education, but the education took off. It was what we were more passionate about. And so ultimately COVID was the straw that broke the camel's back, where we decided to move away from piping products. But anyway, all along the way, it's been the Piper's Dojo. And the dojo communal thing is cool, but then it also sort of symbolizes self-mastery, doesn't it? Like the idea of the dojo, and the sort of Eastern idea that like, happiness and fulfillment really comes from mastery of the self, where I still so believe that and live by that. And my teaching is all informed by these basic ideas. So the word dojo still really fits well, in my opinion, which is why we never actually have, changed it, because it still works. It's still sort of like spiritually so closely related to what we're trying to do.
That's a layer that I have not ever been involved directly, personally, in any kind of martial arts experience. I guess I did wrestle for a little while. When I was 12 years old, I was 6'1" and weighed about 90 pounds and thought it was a good idea. Are you that tall? I'm taller than that now. But I weigh
You're taller than... I had no idea that you were that tall.
Yeah, I'm 6'3", and now I weigh, like 240 or so. But when I was... Imagine an 11, 12-year-old who's 6'1" and weighs 90 pounds. I don't know why I thought wrestling was a good idea. Anyway, that's my martial arts experience there. That's as far as it went. So this idea of what a dojo means, honestly, what you're describing to me is not something that I would have picked up on naturally. Like, I have a very surface level understanding of that word. Just means the place you go to pull people around in gis.
Right.
Like, that's all the further it goes for me. Yeah. And so that's an interesting point that you bring up there, the sort of spiritual layer, if you will, of what it means.
Yes. And I think that's, I think that's what Donald was getting at way from the beginning. It's like, no, dojo's a cool name for this, because it kind of points towards that. It points towards the importance of like how bagpiping can benefit the spirit. I think critics of the dojo might say that it's kind of become slightly ironic. We're very focused on developing great technique. But if you look closely at what we're doing, the reason we believe in developing good technique and and that's what we focus on so much is because the good technique is what allows you to ultimately achieve real self-expression and allows you to create something that's truly meaningful to you, right? And so, I think there's a force and there's a dark side in piping, and we want to teach people the force, right? And the dark side, it's like, I see a lot of good pipers, but the bagpipe is actually kind of playing them. They don't actually have control. They're not actually doing what they want to do. What they're doing is not actually coming from them. It's sort of like being dictated to them by someone or something else, right? And we would be totally against that idea here, where we want people to have, to have and develop great technique. And by the way, have and develop the type of mindset that you need in order to do that, because the end goal is to express yourself however you want to express yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really important. If you want to play, like, I feel like if I want to play high level P-Rock, it's just a matter of shifting gears. I'm not held back by anything technical. I could do it. I think I've never tried it, but if I wanted to play bag-ad music, I think I could just go do that because my technique and my mindset allows me to do that. Right now I enjoy playing in high level pipe bands. And I don't have anything technically holding me back. Maybe that'll change over time. Maybe with age, or maybe the quality of playing in the band will surpass my quality of playing. That could happen. But I feel so liberated, and I feel like the bagpipe has brought so much to my life because of these things. And it's all kind of like, it all kind of points to the same thing the dojo is doing, like in karate or taekwondo or something like that, right? Where you're learning these self-defense techniques, but you're bettering yourself in the process, and you're going to be able to express, your body's going to be able to express itself in whatever way you need it to moving down. So blah, blah, blah. This is why we've never actually seriously thought about changing the name.
Yeah,
because it still works.
I never was critical in my mind of, it's like, yeah, you can call it what you want. But honestly, that kind of peels back. It makes more sense to me in a way that I didn't understand before. So that is interesting.
Yeah. It makes it easier to spot your haters too.
Yeah.
Because a minority of people really hate me and what I do. And they definitely hate the dojo and all that stuff. But it's like the ridiculousness of the name. It's not actually ridiculous. I just explained that I actually kind of love it, but it's a little bit weird and, it's a little bit weird and off, but that just makes it easy. You know, oh, there's that stupid dojo people. It's like, cool. Well, he's not on Team Dojo. And so like, I don't need to concern myself with that person.
Huh. So it's
great. It's good for a variety of reasons.
That can totally do it. That's a solid one right there, Andrew. You ever listen to Frank Zappa by chance? Frank Zappa,
I'm a big
the
fan
Mothers
of
of Invention.
Penguins in Bondage. Yeah.
Penguins in Bondage. Nice. I just remember Frank Zappa talking about how like he and his band, the Mothers of Invention, or the Mothers rather, are proficient with their tools, and that allows them to be creative as individuals and as a group. You know.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah.
That's exactly it. I think that when I play with Inverary and District, that's the exact thing that comes to my mind. Mm. What's the difference between Inverary and like average run-of-the-mill grade 4 band? It just has to do with each individual and how much actual control they have over what's happening. Mm. Right? In Inverary, almost every single individual has almost an ideal level of real control. Mm. Over their body and mind, so to speak, over their instrument and their thought process. You know, we all have nearly an ideal level of control. There's always little things that's got to be fixed.
Sure.
But it's like once you have that, the sky's the limit, right? And by the way, Field Marshal has it too, and SFU has it too, and Scottish Power. Like that's what makes them the best. And then it's just a matter of, who can do the best.
Right.
and it's just kind of fun and interesting. So it's pretty cool. Story of the dojo.